Welcome everyone. We're going to give people a few minutes or a few seconds here to trickle in, and we'll get started. All right, so welcome to today's webinar. We're very excited to have two guests, Land and Suzanne Phillips. They are with Envision Life Academy, and they've been working with Envision Life Academy since 2007. And Envision Life Academy provides a platform for students to essentially guide them through the college and career planning process. And one of the two very impressive statistics to share are they have helped 100,000 students over the past 13 years through their program get into college, and 92% of those students got into what they call one of their top 2 right fit schools. So obviously an impressive program, and very different than how traditional college counselors work. This is a subscription-based model. And so basically up to 2 students, you can do it for $49 per month. If any of you have worked with traditional college counselors, they're far more expensive than that. So they're leveraging the benefits of technology and a platform they've built over time to provide this service at more affordable rates. So welcome, Lane and Suzanne. Great to have you.
Thanks for having us.
Why don't you guys just start? Suzanne, if you want to start, just give a little bit of an overview of Envision Life Academy and why you started Envision Life Academy. That would be really helpful for the listeners.
Sure, I'd love to. Well, we started Envision Life Academy for several reasons, and really a combination of reasons. We have 3 children of our own. Our baby's about to graduate from high school this year. So we have personally walked through the process 3 times. And so that will motivate you to figure the system out a bit. But on top of that, probably what has really motivated us is Lane and I have been co-founders of 2 schools in the Atlanta area. And so for the past decade, we have been walking, a little over a decade, walking with parents of kids from all over, all different backgrounds, in a metro and in a suburb area, listening to what their concerns are and walking with students, and actually in a classroom. I've been in a classroom for 10 years, teaching one specific class around this type of model, and hearing really what's going on in the mind of students and parents, and then knowing sort of what the real background is about career and college planning and where those things miss often.
Yep.
And so we know that there's a need. Because we see it every day, and we've seen it every day. And then I guess lastly would be Lane's been in the career and college planning industry for over a decade. And so we've watched a lot of changes take place. There's currently a lot of changes. I think COVID with the SAT and ACT change this year. It's a constant moving target. And so having the background along with just our own personal experience, and then the experience of so many families, we just are passionate and know that there is a need and we can help.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And part of our job as financial planners is when we're sitting down with families with young kids or even pre-kids, is to look at, what are the costs of college and how much are you going to have to put away, and what's the best place to put away. But ultimately, when you start to kind of get closer to that time frame, there's a lot of kind of logistics, devils in the details type of things that families have to face and go through, and that's really where you all kind of step in, right? So, from an Envision Life Academy, in a 30-second blurb, what would you say you guys do and offer?
Do you want to take that?
Yeah, I think. So really what Envision Life Academy hopes to do is really, we start with a career assessment. So we really want the students to at an early in their high school age, get to know what their gifts, talents, and passions are, really get to know themselves and help their parents get to know their students. And from that, it's really a funnel, Josh, if you think about it. If you start with, hey, what am I passionate about? What am I good at? What would I possibly want to do as a career? Then you can work backwards from there and go, well, what do I need to major in? First of all, it's like, do I even need to go to college?
Right.
There's so many trades and stuff where college might not even be necessary. And we want to help identify that as well. But assuming that a career field that you want to go into requires a college degree, well, what degree would I need to major in to get me to the career field that I want? And then it backs into, well, okay, so what's a school? What schools offer that major? And then from there, based on some assessments that we give, a questionnaire that the student fills out, we help narrow down a list of 8 to 10 to 12 schools that are the right fit school for you. And then we help walk you through your whole high school career to make sure that your transcript is in the best possible position to get you in and out of that school with the most merit aid and the least amount of student debt as possible.
That's very interesting. So you mentioned something that certainly something I've been thinking more about, which is, given the cost of college for families is very difficult to afford. Are you seeing some trends, in terms of people going to trade school more in the last, 3 to 5 years compared to 5 years before that?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. I think people are starting to realize that there's a shortage in the country for tradesmen, and I think that there may have been a little bit of a stigma with trade schools in the past that I think has been lifted. I think people are recognizing that, hey, it's if this is a passion of mine and I'm good at it, and there are good wages to be made in those trades.
Sure.
Some of the other trends that we're seeing are gap years are becoming more and more and more popular, and online school is obviously, with all that kids have had to transition anyway because of COVID. So it's opened up the world of possibilities in terms of, well, do I actually need to be on a campus or not? Do I need a 4-year degree? Do I not? What does a gap year look like? And some of those gap years offer college credit when you're experiencing that. So there are so many options right now that's another reason why a process like this helps you know what the possibilities are, and figure that out. I think one other trend that we're seeing is younger parents sort of making the decision. My kids, they're so entrepreneurial now, and so their mindset is, well, my kids don't really need to go to college. And while that is the case in some areas, I think some of the things that we're seeing with parents at this point is you better really understand that industry, because there are industries that they don't really care what your degree is, but they won't hire you without a degree. And so there's a mindset of, well, we'll just kind of bypass this, and that doesn't always translate with an employer. So the trends with employees and those that are employing, or the employers, have shifted as well as to what they're looking at for a candidate. It's not necessarily about what college you go to; it's about the skill set that you walk out with.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. And one of the things, if you're a high schooler and you're going through this process, I mean, do you encounter a fair number of students that don't necessarily know what they want to do? I know I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was in high school, and how does the process work around where kids just don't necessarily know? I'm sure that's fairly common.
Absolutely, it's very common, and very, very seldom are you going to see a student walk out at 18 years old and have such a focused vision that they're going to nail it. But what you can do is, if you're walking with assessments, you're asking the right questions, you're looking at their history, even from childhood. What did they play with? Where did they spend their time? Where were they curious?
Yeah.
Where did your kids get lost doing something that they just completely lost track of time? There are indicators from a very young age of areas or the way a child learns, the way a child thinks, what interests a child. And so if you can just sort of translate that into a general area, sometimes it's not a specific major, but we know that psychology in general will help you understand people better because we know you're strong with people. So if you can narrow them into an area that is generally going to translate into the things that they love to do, it helps give them purpose, but it also helps give them focus. And then ultimately, I guess we'll talk about this in a little bit, from a financial standpoint, it helps a lot.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I think something that would have been helpful, frankly, for me going back 20 years, because I went to Walt Whitman High School in Bethesda, Maryland. Pressure cooker school, very good school academically, but all of the entire focus that I remember was you get as good a grades as you can, get as good a score as you can, and then go to the most top ranked school that you can.
Mhm.
And what that fails to recognize is all these other attributes and aspects of a student and their life, and having that right fit, right, as in terms of the total person in their school is so important. And that's something I think that some, so much emphasis at some schools is placed on the grades and the test scores, that it really just kind of misses the mark for the person in terms of what they're going to do in the future with their career.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that's the fascinating, and just an example that we use here a lot in Georgia, because Georgia has a scholarship to the University of Georgia, and I forget what it's called.
Yeah, the Hope Scholarship.
Hope Scholarship. And so parents are so focused, parents and students are so focused in getting this highly competitive.
Right.
How do we get the Hope Scholarship? So, an example would be, you have a child who's dying to go to Georgia and killing themselves to get to Georgia and jumping through all the hoops to get to Georgia, but her entire life she's dreamed of being a nurse.
Right.
And there's no nursing school at Georgia.
Right.
So it's, you kind of have to not have the conversation about how to frame that is costly and then shocking, quite frankly, when you get to your senior year and you're like, this is what I've always wanted to do, but you didn't have time to kind of transition into, well, it's what you want to do. Is that more important than sort of where you want to go? Let's figure out what you want to do, and find the best place to do that. So it's interesting. I was going to speak into just the academics and the, getting all the right grades and all of that. The fascinating thing, another trend that we see, parents are often in just an absolute panic about, and it's, the schools almost coach you in this, but, my kids have to have 14 AP classes and they have to be in 10 sports and they have to, all the stuff. And we're seeing the trends of anxiety and depression and suicide skyrocket.
Yep.
And I know that there's a link to that, but the reality is when you look at colleges and you talk to colleges, quite often they would rather you have dual enrolled as opposed to an AP course, because the dual enrollment says it is a college course. That you get one midterm and you get one final. You have to study the way a college student studies, as opposed to an AP course, which is great in terms of commitment and endurance and all of that, but that's not how a college class operates.
So can you just, you said a term, dual enrolled. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, a dual enrolled course is in high school. When you're enrolled in high school, you can often go to a college and take a college course at your local community college, or online, that will give you credit for both your high school transcript and for your college transcript.
Oh, okay.
For example, we have students at the school that are taking, in their junior and senior year, they might want to take a psychology, and you don't offer that their junior year in high school. So they can take a psychology, get an elective credit in high school, but it also goes on a college transcript. So when you apply for college, you can prove that I am college prepared. Right. And I can handle this because I've already been doing this for 2 years.
I see. So it might not have the same kind of cachet as taking an AP course, but it's practically speaking, just as good, if not more.
If not more.
Yeah.
And parents don't know that.
Yeah,
met the students.
I had never heard that being dual enrolled.
And it also reduces, it could potentially reduce your
Absolutely.
overall cost of college, because those courses you get credit for them when you enroll in your college. And so we've had students at the school that Suzanne and I started where, they loaded up on their dual enrollment courses during their junior and senior year of high school. And they went in as a second semester freshman or first semester sophomore already, because of all the credits they took as a dual enrolled student. So that obviously cuts down on the amount of tuition. And
Smart.
typically, the parents don't have to pay for those courses. They're paid through the school system,
Or it's very minimal.
or
if
it's
you do.
minimal, for books or something like that.
So that's that many less credits potentially they have to take, which saves them dollars.
Absolutely.
Got it. Okay. So speaking of kind of some of these preconceived notions and the pressure that these kids feel, which was big when I was in school, and it sounds like it's just rising. What are some of the pitfalls and traps that you see parents and kids kind of falling into during this process?
Well, that's a huge one. The AP dual enrollment, those are
Yeah.
questions that parents should be asking and getting to know. I think another one is when you don't have any idea what direction you're heading in as a student, the average, and you're probably gonna be able to tell the financial part of this a little bit better than I am, but a typical 4-year degree, the average now takes 6 years to get. So when it takes you 6 years to get a 4-year degree, the cost of the actual tuition for 6 years, and then the cost of lost revenue,
Right.
lost income, I'm sorry, for those 2 years,
Yep.
it's quite substantial. And so parents often think, well, I didn't know what I wanted to do. This is an entirely different ballgame than when we went to college. There is not one thing that is in the process that when our kids have gone through it, it's completely foreign. And so parents kind of go into it thinking, well, I just did it. I looked at 2 campuses and I took my ACT and SAT, and what's the big deal? It's an entirely different ball game.
Yeah, the figuring it out when I get there method is extremely costly, and it happens. Kids will I'll figure it out when I get there. I'm going to go to this school because that's where my dad went, or it's the one that's closest to me, or whatever. And they get there and they realize, well, this isn't a great fit, and then they transfer, and it's all those kinds of things that really cause those 2 extra years of school to get a 4-year degree.
That's really interesting. So in some sense, not approaching the process with best practices in mind, let's call it, can actually lead to what should have or could have been a 4-year process ends up being a 5 or 6 year process.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
That's
I
interesting.
think one of the other ones that I think parents, in our day going to school, it's exactly what you described. Like, which school can you get in? And I need that degree from that school. That is less and less important.
Yeah.
Because employers are far more concerned this day and age about character
Interesting.
than they are about the seal on the diploma. And it's interesting when you look at someone coming out of school now and their resume and how they write a resume, that doesn't even look the same. They're taking the disc early. They're taking these assessments that's on their resume. They want to see skill sets on their resume as much, if not more, than maybe experience.
Right.
So that's a big deal. And I would say one other one that I see often is that kids are spread a mile wide and an inch deep. And colleges do not want to see that. They want to see a story. So if you're passionate, going back, if you're passionate about something in 7th and 8th grade, then they want to see that you've invested in something and kind of grown into leadership in that thing, or that you're outside the school. If you are volunteering, that you're actually volunteering in something that means something to you. You're not just checking off the box.
Yeah.
So they'll actually look and see what typically happens is you start to get a coach, or you start to get someone to help you in 11th grade. And then all the kids run out and do service projects.
Right.
There are schools that will not even consider the fact that you've served in the community if you don't start until 11th grade, because they know that you just did it to get in school. They
Right.
want to see someone who's passionate about something or cares about something, doesn't matter what it is, but they're invested. And then that essay that you write to get into school reflects something that you're already doing, not something that you want the school to teach you how to do. It's a flip. But it's important, and those things matter getting into school now.
That's very interesting. That's really interesting. So speaking, and you're kind of talking about this as we go, but what are some of the best practices for college planning, career planning, that parents and kids should be thinking about? And I would also ask, what age should a family, parent, kids start thinking about, Envision Life Academy, the type of service you offer?
I'll start and I'll let you finish this.
Two-part question.
Yeah, I think with best practices, one of them really is for a parent to sort of wrap their head around the fact that they need to be a student of their student.
Okay.
Early, like that as they're in school, that it's less about performing in all the areas that you think they should perform and more about where is that performance and desire happening, so that they can steer the child and affirm the child in that direction, which then leads to what could you do with that passion? Where's a purpose? Every human being wants to have a purpose, and kids this day and age really want to have a purpose. That's the language that they speak. So helping the kids first at an early age, middle school, start talking about, well, you love to do this. How could this help another person? What problem could this solve? But having those conversations as a family, so critical because that helps to give the child focus to begin with. And it sets them up to know that this is the way that I should be thinking. And then I think actually hearing what your child is saying to you instead of telling them what they should be thinking is, this is all about parenting, but the best practices starts with great parenting. And that means know your child and listen to your child and build the relationship so that you can sort of give them the wisdom that they're going to need. But they've got so much stuff being crammed in and around them with social media and academics, and I don't think they have time to reflect. So I think best practices starts at home and in conversation. And then that translates into, let's look at what careers where we could head with that. And then I think sort of ending with, let's get someone who can help us that knows the system here. Let's get an expert that can help us navigate what to do with all this information that we've sort of collected. Let's dump it now into a bigger process once you hit the high school age, so that it turns into something. Begin with the end in mind.
Okay, so having some sort of a plan, essentially.
Right. And then when would you say this, Tom?
So, ideally, we would love to start working with students as early as their freshman year. I'm sure parents are like, my kid's only, 15, 16 years old. It's, a long way to start thinking about college, but it's never too early to start having these conversations and to really start putting your finger on the pulse of what our college is looking for. So ideally, if you can kind of identify through our assessments and through these conversations that kids are having with their parents, if they can identify, hey, these are some potential career fields that I like, some majors, and here's kind of a broad list of schools. Well, then our coaches can help you, and our platform can help you identify, well, what do you need? What does your transcript need to look like to get into that school, to even be eligible to apply? And I always use the example that there's some schools that, and majors that require, if you want to go into some sciences, you need to have 3 or 4 years of science. Well, if you don't join our program until you're a junior and you only have 2 years of science, well, you're going to be, that's going to already automatically knock out a lot of your schools that might be the right fit for you, or foreign language falls into that a lot. Kids just want to take,
all the time.
The high schools only require 2 years of a foreign language, but the college that they want to go to requires 3 years. Well, now what do you do? You're kind of stuck. So that's why we would like to start working with kids earlier in their high school careers so that we can walk with them and help them be best prepared to be able to get into those right fit colleges.
Sure. So in terms of the interaction with Envision Life Academy, can you walk us through kind of, okay, the steps, contact Envision Life Academy or subscribe, and then kind of can you take us through a timeline of what happens or what they could expect?
Sure. So the platform, the actual platform is called Envision. And when a student enrolls in our program, they will get emailed their credentials, and they will log in, create their account, log into the platform. And when they log in, they'll fill out a questionnaire about themselves, and they'll fill out their career assessment. And immediately upon completing that, the system has proprietary algorithms that have been written that will automatically go and score their student against every four-year school. There's about 4,500 four-year schools in the United States. So our MyFit program will go in and automatically score that student based on those responses that they provided, every single one of those. So it'll say, like, this is a good fit, this is a moderate fit, this is not a great fit. And it changes throughout their high school career as their inputs change. So as their GPA changes, or their financial situation changes, there's 4 or 5 different criteria that we use to score the MyFit, and then they can kind of keep a track of where they fit in all these schools. And beyond that, they have a dashboard, and on that dashboard, it's geared towards their current semester in school. So if they're a second semester sophomore, they have a dashboard with a heat map that shows them exactly the steps they need to take between the sophomore year to graduation. And it's so the items in red these are the actual critical items that you need to complete short term. And then as each semester passes, their heat map automatically changes for, okay, now you're a first semester junior. These are the steps you need to be taking. And here's where you need to reach out, chat with one of our coaches to talk about your college selection, or talk about your essays, or talk about filling out your financial aid forms. And so we walk you step by step all the way through the process. I think the key is, Josh, the portal is very interactive, and it's very custom to that student. I think the days, what we were talking about earlier, the days of the one size fits all, just score the best you can on the SAT and go for the highest school. Like, I think those days are over. And really, you really need a program that's going to be customized and individualized for each student, because as we know, every student's unique, and every circumstance is unique.
Right. And how about the parent? Does the parent have a login with the kid, or does the kid have their own login? How does that work?
Yeah, this is unique. So, that's when you get to a high school, parents, that's the last thing that a high school student wants, is the parents kind of hovering over them. And so with this platform, the parents actually have their own login.
Okay.
And they can log in, and they can see how often their students logged in. They can see the student's heat map, and they know if the student has accomplished the tasks that they are supposed to accomplish. So that, and they are free to reach out to coaches, with any question they may have. So yeah, they can kind of monitor their student, and ask student questions like, hey, have you done this? Or, without really nagging them, but they can have a view into where the student is, and ideally they can reach out to the coaches with any questions they have.
Wow, that's really impressive. And if someone's just going, let's say, this webinar, Land and Suzanne, gets passed along, a student or parent watches it, and they go on to learn about Envision Life Academy. Is the website the best way to learn about all the different services that are offered, or is there anything else that people should be aware of?
Yeah, if they just go to Envision Life Academy, and there's, I think all the information that they would need is right there. But there's also they can email us at info@Envision Life Academy if they have any questions. But I think that the website's been designed that hopefully it will answer all their questions right there.
Okay, great. And then we kind of covered more of the qualitative, the planning side. On the finance side, I know it can be very intimidating for families to deal with things like FAFSA and the expected family contribution, the EFC. Can you give us a little bit, nothing too detailed, but a little bit of an overview of what those are, and at what point does that need to happen? Does that happen, when you're applying to the school, the year before,
Yeah.
the FAFSA in particular there?
Yeah, the FAFSA, as for those that may not know, the FAFSA is the free application for federal and state aid.
Okay.
And it's a required document from the government that needs to be completed no earlier than October 1st. FAFSA opens up on October 1st. And so students the year before, or the October 1st of their senior year, families and students need to fill out the FAFSA form. The key with that is, you want to do it as close to October 1st as you can, because the student aid, the money runs out. It's not an endless supply of money. And so it's kind of a first come, first serve program. And so parents will fill out the FAFSA, and it's based on your prior year's tax returns.
Prior,
so
2 years.
Prior, yeah, 2 years. And sorry, that's FAFSA speak.
That's okay. To make sure I understand.
Yeah. So you complete online, you complete the FAFSA, and the government generates this EFC report, which is the expected financial contribution, and a student aid report. And in that student aid report is the EFC. And the EFC is, a lot of people are surprised to learn this, but it's basically the government telling you how much you should be able to pay for college. And it's crazy. And so colleges and universities will take that EFC and they'll deduct that from the cost of the admissions at their school. And then that's what they come up with how much aid you should be eligible for. The key with FAFSA and with all of this financial aid stuff, Josh, is it changes constantly. It's about to change again. October 1st of 2022, they're changing it again, and they're doing away with EFC. And now they're going to be going with something that's called the Student Aid Index.
Okay.
And so it's critical that there's somebody on your side that's staying on top. I mean, we have professionals that this is all they do is stay on top of financial aid documents and requirements. And that's why we want to partner with you, because we don't expect you in your busy day with your life to keep track of what's the government's regulations on student aid today. And that's what we want to help you with. We want to make sure that ideally, if you depend, regardless of what your income is or what your expected family contribution is, merit aid is there regardless of how much money you make. And so whether you make $100 or $1 million, schools offer merit aid, and that's based on your transcript. And that's used to be based on on test scores. As we know, with COVID, the test scores are kind of going away. I don't know if they'll be coming back. I kind of doubt they'll be coming back with the significance that they used to have. But merit aid is a big deal. And so it doesn't matter what the government says your EFC is, schools can offer you merit aid if your student qualifies for it. So that's what we really stress, is because merit aid is basically the free money that students don't have to pay back. And so, that's like scholarships back in the day when you and I went to school. They called it scholarships. Now they call it merit aid.
So most schools offer merit aid.
Yes.
And it has nothing to do with the EFC.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay. And then they also, let's say they cost of tuition, subtract out the EFC, and the school also has discretion to provide financial aid. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
And they can offer it through Pell Grants or other federal grant opportunities, or they can, parents can go out to get private student loans if they want.
Sure. And would you guys kind of help coordinate or quarterback, okay, hey, if this is the school we're looking at, this is going to be the cost differential, in terms of, or is that kind of something that more the financial advisor would step in and help with, or a combination?
Well, I think it's a combination. I think what our coaches do is we will, excuse me, we will help review your FAFSA. We can't fill it out for you, but we can
Right.
help you answer the questions because, I mean, I've been doing this for 10 years and I filled out the FAFSA for my high school senior and I had to call them and say, how do I do, like, what do they want on this,
Yeah, I
I haven't.
imagine.
It's very difficult.
So we're going to help you fill out the form. But I think where we really add a lot of value is when you get that student aid report back, we review that for you because a lot of times there are errors in there. And we will help identify those errors that can help reduce your EFC. But I think that's where we can really partner with, the families can partner with us and partner with you guys, because I think you guys have strategies on how, with, as you manage their assets, how they can help reduce their EFC as well. And that's an area we don't get into.
Yeah, I know one of the misnomers, I think it's a misnomer that a lot of people ask questions when we do workshops or just client meetings is, well, the more I save, the less, help I'm going to get from a financial aid standpoint. And so they rationalize not putting into college savings plans for their kids because it means that there's not going to be as much aid. And they don't realize that there is some correlation, but I think it's only like 5%, right? Of approximately 5% of the 529 balance is factored into kind of the EFC. So it still makes sense to save money, and really understanding kind of what the inputs are that go into, like, having two kids in college at the same time can have a much bigger impact on EFC than how much you've saved in a 529 plan. Is that a rough understanding, correct?
Yes, no, you're absolutely right. And I think it's always better to, I think it's better to save for the 529 and reduce whatever EFC minimally rather than, that just means now I have more money that I could go out and borrow. And, I don't think you would ever want to replace a loan with,
Right.
strapping your student with a loan just because
Right.
you want to save your, increase your EFC.
Right, exactly. And I know there's I don't know what the services are, but there's organizations out there where they kind of put themselves out there specializing in college planning, and what they're doing is they're selling the parents sizable whole life insurance policies. I don't know if you've come across this, because the cash value on a whole life insurance policy is exempt from an asset on the FAFSA form.
Wow.
And so, something to be aware of is, while that might seem like a smart strategy, you have to look at everything, comprehensively in terms of the big picture, right?
Absolutely.
It comes with a cost to do something like that. So something to just be aware of. We have a question come in. Are there any specific recommendations for getting on track to be accepted to any of the military colleges? I don't know if you have any thoughts there, or.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of experience with the military colleges, but I know that our coaches are actually have researched and done that. And so, we help athletes, we help people that want to go into the military academies, we help, all the various, the arts. I think of the 4,500 four-year colleges in the country, our coaches over the last 10 or 12 years have physically visited and met with admissions counselors at over 1,000 of them. So
Wow.
we have quite a lot of experience in what these schools are looking for. And of the 100,000 students that we've helped, that represents over 2,100 unique colleges and universities that our students have gotten into. So we have a very broad experience with what these schools are looking for, and we use a lot of resources to keep track of what every one of these schools' requirements are, and how we can best service our students.
The other, I was just going to speak into, we spoke about the heat map and, what's coming up and how it adjusts to students, but an example of that with an athlete, or if it's a military college, if the coaches know that that's the direction and that's something that is a goal of yours, then they will insert a block into the heat map that will say, at this point, we need to contact, you go to audition, or you need to reach out to the coach, or you need to send a film. So when the coaches know what the student's going for, they can help figure out where that fits in the process, and they build that out to individually match that student.
Very good. Okay, that makes sense.
Mhm.
I mean, it's impressive. It's definitely a valuable service, and I think, and frankly, at a very affordable kind of pay-as-you-go price of, you know, $49
Absolutely.
per month per family, essentially for 2 kids. So, um, what, just so the listeners know, what is the website? If you want to just tell us the exact website, and I think it's info@Envision Life Academy if people do have questions. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. So it's just Envision Life Academy, Envision with an E, ENVISON, lifeacademy.com. And if they have any questions, they can email us at info@Envision Life Academy.
Okay, perfect. Is there anything else that we should have talked about that I didn't mention that you guys want to share? Any stories? I don't, anything at all that you want to leave our listeners with? If not, that's okay. This was a great conversation, but if you do, it would be welcome.
I think what I would end with is, you know, we're kind of talking to parents about knowing your student, but I think it's so critical that we understand the culture that we're in right now. And when we talk, you know, there's so much talk about mental health. And before COVID hit, the statistics were kids 16 to 24 years old in that age range were experiencing depression at an all-time historical high, worse than the Great Depression, before COVID hit. And so this next generation is under so much stress. And now many of them are at school trying to learn online, and they don't have contacts. They don't really, there is not, especially in public school, there's not a guidance counselor out there that can give them the attention that they need to get through all of this and narrow the way for them.
Right.
And so I think if I had one thing to say, it really is, you know, we think this product is awesome. We've used it. We've seen the success of it personally with the students in the school, you know, across the board, the statistics back it up. But if I had one thing to say before getting off is, we really need to be aware of where this next generation is, and where their head is and what's going on in their life. And the pressures often that are being put on them are completely unnecessary and are not aligned with the truth of how this whole college career planning works. They're not even on the right page. And so much of that can be relieved with just the right information.
Yeah, and I would just say, Josh, I think it's just, with a plan, I think it just reduces so much stress. I mean, it's just like with you guys, with an overall financial plan for a family, how much peace that can bring, just knowing, hey, this is where we're going, and we know we can get there because we have a sound plan that's based on facts, and just how much peace that brings. And then this college planning piece is just the same way. I mean, it can reduce so much stress in a family, and it can help, frankly, restore and keep relationships with the kids and the parents, because, hey, we've got a plan. It's going to be okay. We're going to have the plan. We're going to work the plan, and it's going to be okay.
And there's a coach to mediate,
Exactly.
which I think
Right.
is very,
Yeah.
very critical.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, that really resonates, probably because we do comprehensive financial planning, but having a plan, it's obviously not everything's going to go to plan, but just having that plan gives you a target, keeps you going in the right direction, and you can always, pivot from there. But having a sense of where you're going is so helpful. And this sounds, I mean, just to embrace kind of the qualitative part of the child, the student, as a human being, not just a test score, really sounds at the heart of what you guys do.
Absolutely.
And that's I think very, very important for all the reasons you mentioned, especially in an age of COVID where stress is so high, and there's so much pressure on these kids. So
and there's just so much uncertainty too.
Yeah, a lot of uncertainty. No, there's so much pressure on kids, even when they come out of school. If they don't have this plan, they come out and, okay, I have a marketing degree, or I have a psychology degree, or and it's like, okay, well, I did what I was supposed to do. I went to school. I got a degree. Now what am I supposed to, now where am I supposed to go? And, if you don't have that plan, it just creates that much more stress when you get out of school. So,
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
great. Looks like maybe another question or nope, that was answered. Okay. All right, fantastic. Well, thank you guys so much, Lane.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for your time
you guys-
today.
Yeah, you guys were excellent, and we'll make sure everyone has a way to access you and can hear this webinar. And we'll be sure to mention your service as part of kind of when we do the planning as a
Great.
value add and something that they should definitely consider. So thank you.
Thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
much.
Thank you so much.
Great. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.